Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for coming to this Trino Summit. I know there's people all over the world. So good morning, good evening to those in Europe and in Asia. And if there's anyone from Hawaii, I applaud you because it's the middle of the night right now. So I wanted to give you an update on everything that's been going on in 2024. Like we do these every year. And I think it's important for to let everyone know what the community has been up to, all the advancements in the project, and so on. So this year has been a monumental year for Trino. It's been a record actually. So we had more than 5,000 new commits in the code base. That's in Trino alone, not counting all the ancillary projects that the Trino community manages, and that brought the total to 40,000 commits. And if you think about it, project has been around for 12 years, so this year alone counts for more than any other year in the past. So it's been growing. The project has been growing very dramatically. And all those changes were done by a large number of contributors, 225, more than 225 contributors this year alone. And this is a testament of all the support and the engagement from everyone in the community to make Trino the best data analytics engine out there. And of course, we've seen an increase in the number of stars on GitHub, the number of people showing up on Slack, which is it's very exciting to see thousands and thousands of people being exposed to Trino, liking the project, liking what the community is doing, and participating in it. Next one. All right, let's go over some of the major things that happened this year. So there's a couple areas where we've seen some dedicated effort and work from the community. One, we've seen increased adoption by companies that want to have more control over access to data, governance, etc. And we've seen adoption of Open Policy Agent. And this year we added an integration between Trino and OPA. It was a big effort by multiple people from Bloomberg and Starburst and other companies. And this allows Trino to integrate and talk to OPA when performing access control checks, and then you can define policies. In OPA, it's a very rich language for controlling and defining who can access what when. And similarly to that, we have now an integration with Apache Ranger. There was one or a few implementations out there in the wild. Now we have a first-class supported implementation of that integration inside the Trino project. And this was also a collaboration with a number of people that have been involved in that project over the past few years. On the other major area we've seen many improvements is around observability. The main one is to start with is we added support for OpenTelemetry and Open Metrics. These are two technologies that anyone that's deploying and running SaaS software or even their own deployments these days is using these tools and the ecosystem around OpenTelemetry to be able to see what's going on in their systems, be able to troubleshoot them, be able to run them and operate them. And now Trino can expose OpenTelemetry traces and metrics, so it makes it much more easy, powerful, and capable in terms of figuring out what's going on with the system. When queries are slow, it's easier to see where the performance is going. It's easier to see what parts of the system are slow or are having problems, especially when this is a very complex system that has a number of components talking across the network. So it makes it easier to observe and manage a Trino deployments. And then we added support for, so Trino has a way to produce events about every query that runs in the system. This can be useful for storing a history of queries, then looking at what happened in the past, analyzing the how people are using the system, performance, and so on. And we added support for publishing these events into Kafka streams. So anyone that relies on Kafka and wants to feed that data into some other system through Kafka now can do it directly by enabling this plugin. And finally, we added a plugin for Open Lineage, which makes it possible to, Open Lineage is also another set of tools and ecosystem that allows you to see tables and relationship between tables through the lens of how people are querying those tables and deriving other tables. So you can see this table came from the result of executing this query, which came from the result of executing some other query, and so on. So Trino can publish those events, and then the Open Lineage tools and ecosystem can piece all the things together and display that information. That's very, very, very powerful set of tools if you haven't tried them. Next. The second set of change, and we're going to talk about a couple of these in more detail, are around client protocol improvements. We did a revamp of some parts of the protocol, very powerful changes we'll go into. And then we are going to introduce, describe the new support for Python user-defined functions. So currently we have support for functions written using the SQL dialect, which is, I mean, it's usable, it's powerful for some things, but it's not something that people know very well. Python is much more used in the industry. Actually, I would say that the SQL dialect is almost not used by anyone in the industry. Python is so pervasive. So we did a bunch of work this year to add support for Python functions, and we're going to talk a bit more about that and give some examples of that. And then finally, we've done a lot of work around improving the dependency management and keeping dependencies up to date in Trino. Trino is a very complex system with all the connectors that we have. We have lots of dependencies on third-party libraries and third-party tools. And I mean, as you know, there's always issues around CVEs and vulnerabilities and quality of those libraries. So this year we've had a more concerted effort in keeping those up to date to address some vulnerabilities, either perceived or real. But we've been keeping up with the updates. We also removed the dependency on the Python runtime in the Docker image and when deploying a Trino server, which has been one of the sources of issues for people running deployments in environments that need to be more secure. Next, Mike. Right, and then finally, in the larger scheme of or larger ecosystem, we have other projects, and we also had a number of improvements and developments in those projects. So last year we made the Trino Gateway first-class project in the Trino ecosystem. There's a group of people that have gathered around that project and been pushing forward. They made lots and lots of improvements. This is something that we're going to discuss later in one of the talks. And if you haven't checked out the Gateway, that's a pretty cool project to take a look at. We also had a donation by one of the contributors in Trino for a new JavaScript client. So it's a new top-level project that we're managing, and if you know JavaScript and you want to get involved, that would be awesome. We need more people to participate in that project. Then later on, we're gonna see a talk by George on a new C# and ADL.NET driver for Trino. So that's going to be super exciting, and looking forward to that. And then we've had a lot of improvements to the Helm charts for Trino and for the Trino gateway. And we'll have a talk later by Jan and Sebastian describing those improvements. Right, let's dig a little deeper into a couple of the major changes. So historically, we had when clients talk to Trino, they do so via HTTP using a custom protocol that we defined 12 years ago when Trino got created. And it has served its purpose. I mean, Trino has always been a tool that people use to query data, summarize it, and then returns small results to a client, like a dashboard or a client tool that only needs to display a small result set. And then when people need to do bigger transformations, they do so via queries that can mutate data, like insert or create table as and so on. So over the past few years, we've seen increased demand for being able to extract larger data sets from Trino. So this is for people running queries in Trino, and then they want to feed data into other systems. It could be into other tools like Python. They're trying to do processing from Python, or they're trying to dump very large result sets into some other tool or system for further analysis or development. And the client has been the client protocol has been a bottleneck here. Part of the problem is that the protocol is single stream, so you end up being able to read data from one single place in one single thread. And if the clients are not they're not very efficient, they can end up slowing down because of latency of network, and if they can do things, do processing in parallel inside the client, they end up bottlenecked on that round trip. The other problem is that a slow client can tie up resources on the Trino cluster, because Trino processes data as the client requests it. So if a query let's say you're doing a query with a lot of joining a lot of data or big aggregation, if you start asking for data from the client very slowly, the server will have to hold on to all that data in memory while the query runs, and that can tie up resources and can prevent other queries from running. And that's not ideal, especially when you have slow networks and slow client setups. So we've made a bunch of improvements to the protocol, and we did it in a way that allows clients to gracefully update to the new protocol. So the protocol continues to work for all clients, but any client that has the new capabilities can seamlessly use them. So the new protocol is parallel. So that means that a client can request data from multiple threads at the same time. And we've seen in some cases, this has been a massive improvement in performance. And then on the server side, the server will stage data into object storage while the query is running, and it can run ahead from what the client is going to be doing. So it can run through the query much faster, release resources much quicker, and then let the client download the results as at its own page. So this is a very powerful technique that makes it possible to run Trino more efficiently and more stably. So the JDBC driver and the CLI have been updated to the new improvements in the protocol. The Python client is being worked on, and then of course, if you want to participate and help with other clients, there's a lot of work still ahead for that. Right, the next major change is that I kind of briefly mentioned before, is support for Python user-defined functions. So the idea here is you can you can define or use a function in your query that is created using Python language. Let me give you an example here. So here we have a query. If you look at the bottom, it's doing a select XOR with a couple arguments. That XOR function comes from the definition above. This is standard SQL language where we say, well, it's an extension to the SQL language where you can define the function in line, but we also support it for, you can create and manage functions separately using standard features in SQL. So here we define the function at the top with the arguments, 2 Boolean arguments. We declare that it returns a Boolean, and we say that the function is defined using Python. And then if you see between the dollar signs, you just provide the body of the definition. So here we import some package operator, and then we define the function to the actual logic. So if you go to the next slide, Mike. So this supports all the standard functions or feature SQL syntax for managing functions. You can create, you can drop, you can list the functions, just like you can do with the SQL dialect functions. And then you can run them in line with the with function extension that I just described. So these functions get executed by Trino in line with the query processing. So they don't require any third-party Python installation. This is all done using WASM environment. So it's sandbox, it's secure, and it runs as part of the query processing. So they run in the same way that any other function in the Trino language in the Trino server would run. So it's very, very powerful. So now if you want to extend Trino with custom processing that you cannot easily describe in SQL, or you don't want to write Java code and deploy it in your cluster and have to manage that, then this is a good way to do it. There are some limitations though. So this is an experimental feature. It just landed in Trino. It will be out in the next release. And so of course, like I encourage everyone to give it a try, report issues, and let us know. Currently it supports the Python language and core libraries, and we're going to look into how to support other extensions and user-provided libraries in the future. And it's a new feature, so there's still there might be some performance potholes and lots of room for improvement. So please try it out and let us know and report any problems. So here's a more complex sample just to finish this part off. So this is a function that reverses words in a sentence, and you can see it's pretty similar in how you do it. You define it with the one I showed before, but this shows you it can be a lot more complex. You can have multiple functions in your Python block that call each other, and then at the end there's one function as the entry point that you have to reference from that with handler clause, and that's what Trino is going to call when you invoke the function. All right, next. Right, and then finally on the connectors side, we always making improvements. This is one of the areas that keeps evolving continuously. So in particular, this year we added support for file system caching for Iceberg and Delta Lake. We used to only support that for the Hive connector. For certain deployments that can provide some performance benefits. We also added integrations with Apache Polaris and the Unity catalogs for those connectors. So if you're running those systems, now you can try them. And there's lots and lots of minor and too many to list improvements in all connectors. For example, in the Iceberg and Delta Lake, support for managing your deployment, so your data, your tables, migrating from Hive to Iceberg, and we have some function to make that easier. We have improvements and bug fixes in how data types are mapped and how they're handled. So lots and lots of changes. If you want to find more about those, just go over the release notes that we publish on every release. And then we have new connectors. We have connector for Exasol. We have a connector called Faker, which creates synthetic data that's useful for testing, doing performance testing, experimenting with Trino. We have a connector for OpenSearch, and then we recently added connector for Snowflake and Vertica. Then we removed a number of connectors: Accumulo, ATOP, Local File, and Raptor, which were not used very much. We asked people in the larger community, and we didn't see much adoption for those, so we decided to remove them to make the code easier to manage, maintain, and evolve over time. We're also considering removing the Kudu, Kinesis, and Phoenix connectors next year. So if you have feedback about those, if you use them or don't use them, then let us know so we have better data on how to move forward with those. And then finally, I wanted to give a quick update on some of the things that are coming up and more forward-looking things that we're considering. So we're continuing to make progress on support for dynamic catalogs. One of the things that we need to be able to do or users need to be able to do when defining catalogs dynamically is avoid exposing secret piece of information. For example, a catalog may define a password for connecting to a third external system, but the catalog definition can be displayed and can be observed by users interacting with the system. So we're introducing a system for managing secrets as a first-class element. I mean, this is something that other systems have done. So this decouples the management of those secrets from the definition of the catalog to make those definitions more secure. As I mentioned before, we have the new protocol. We still have to make improvements to all the other client drivers, and that's going to be ongoing work for the next year. And if you want to get involved in those areas, that'll be pretty nice. We're also looking at making changes to how we package Trino. Right now, Trino includes all the connectors that are supported by Trino that are part of the code base. This results in very large packages. Like I think the Docker image is over 1 gigabyte big, and the tarball is almost hitting 1 gigabyte. So we're trying to slim that down a bit, and also give an option for people that don't need all those connectors to have a thinner package, both for like space and bandwidth improvements, but also so they don't have to deal with potential CVEs that are reported for or may come up for some connectors they might not be using. So we're looking into that. There's an issue describing that. Manfred is actually driving that effort. So he's been seeking feedback on what's useful and not useful to people. We also have a number of connectors in progress being developed and reviewed right now for DuckDB, LanceDB, HSQLDB, Loki, and a few others. So those are we're expecting to land in the next few months. And then, of course, we always make progress and improvements on performance. We've done a lot of improvements this year. We're going to continue to do some more. There's a renewed interest and focus on performance work. So we're going to continue to make progress there. As part of that, one of the things we're starting to look into is the next generation of the optimizer. There's some things that the optimizer in Trino cannot do and hasn't been able to do. for the past few years, and we want to get it to the next level so we can have an engine that can produce much better plans and much more efficient query execution. So we're starting to look into that. And then there are a number of language features. So we try to keep very close to the SQL standard, but of course, SQL standard doesn't evolve very quickly. It's only a major revision every 5 years or so, and doesn't usually include everything that everyone desires. So we're starting to look at some of the language features that are very common in other systems that people have come to rely on, and we're going to figure out how to include some of those in Trino. So we have to be very careful with this, but we're this is an area we're exploring nowadays. Okay, and then on the community side, just want to mention, we now have a monthly call between maintainers, and one that is open to all contributors. So if you want to, and these are open to anyone that wants to participate. So if you are interested, you can always join those. And we have a calendar for those. I think they're on the website. Maybe Manfred can provide more information later on that. This year we held a Trino Fest in June in Boston. We do Trino Summits in December, Trino Fest in the middle of the year in the summer, and we'll hold one next year as well. I want to give a shout out to some of our Japanese community members. So last year they all got together, or a few of our contributors got together and decided to translate the Trino book into Japanese, and they pushed through that effort, and then they got it published. So now there's a new resource for anyone that is in Japan to learn more about Trino, how to use it, how to manage it, and deploy it. And then as Manfred mentioned, we had a bunch of new training material with the SQL base camps. There's other resources that are useful for anyone that's trying to get into Trino and learning the SQL capabilities in the language. So please check them out if you haven't seen them. And then, of course, like we've done a number of improvements to the website. We have a section for anyone that's using Trino. If you want to get listed there, please let us know. We've also revamped the contribution docs to make it easier for people that want to get involved in the project to understand what they need to do, how to best engage with the community and the project. So if you're interested in contributing and participating, also check that out. And with that, thanks everyone for coming to this summit. I think it's going to be super exciting. We have a lot of very interesting talks, so please stick around.